So about that infrastructure. How long do you think it's going to last if we continue to produce people who can't do math? Earlier today, I posted on Twitter something about how literacy was really the key to everything. It was the social justice issue. And if you really wanted to end systemic racism or, help children, stop repeating the patterns that lead to inequality of outcome, you'll focus like a laser beam on literacy. And somebody responded with, math would be nice too. And of course, he was correct. I guess I think of literacy in terms of all of it, like the ability to read and to understand. You need to know how to do math. It's called numeracy usually, but I would kind of lump it together because once you begin to read, you start to understand. It would be a good idea to know how to do math, because a lot of things you read about only make sense if you know anything about math, and they sometimes spark a child's imagination to want to learn how to make things, build things, keep things going, take things apart, put them back together, and oftentimes that involves math. So they kind of feed each other, but I digress. So he shared this piece with me, America's Flunking Math. We need to get racial politics out of the equation before it's too late. And I was thrilled to see this. I did not know about this Substack called Persuasion. And so I decided to share this piece with you, read through it for you. I know some of you like to listen rather than read. I'm going to link to this in the description section so you can go read it for yourself. I hope that you will. I hope that you will subscribe to the Substack, share this article widely because it makes some excellent points. And at the end, it has some fabulous suggestions of what we should be doing instead of what we are doing. I hope you will think about them long and hard as you listen to people like Randy Weingarten and then people at your school board and people, around talking about what they need to do with advanced math classes and so forth, all in the name of so-called equity. Keep in mind what you're about to hear. I also want you to think about what I said at the outset. How about that infrastructure? How long can we maintain bridges and highways and build airplanes that actually get off the ground and maintain them? Okay. And how about your car? And, at the same time that we're talking about developing alternative fuels and all kinds of wonderful green energy and getting off of, cars that use fossil fuels and using only electric solutions, we're talking about getting more and more advanced while at the same time saying we need to downplay excellence because of equity. We need to, stop offering advanced math because too many Asian kids are getting those classes and not enough Black kids. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You have to wonder, where do they think these mathematicians and engineers and scientists are going to come from if we're so busy worrying about having everybody come out in the same place in the end? We should actually be doing the opposite, shouldn't we? Looking for that raw talent and helping it become the next Einstein or the next Tesla or the next Elon Musk. Who knows? But I want you to think about those things as I'm reading this article because they don't go together. This push for equity at the expense of excellence and excellence. Can't have both. And we need excellence because the kind of society we want to live in and the kind of goals we have for the environment, for, health, including health equity, sort of rely on talented mathematicians and scientists. So let's take a look. All right. America is flunking math. Yes, indeed, we are. It's tragic. Among all human endeavors, mathematics stands alone in terms of its beauty, universality, and innumerable applications. Though its role is often obscured by esoteric language, mathematics is behind almost all of humanity's major advances in science and engineering. Bridges stand, planes fly, rockets carry us into space, and MRIs can see into our brains thanks to the precise mathematical calculations performed by powerful computers invented by mathematicians such as Alan Turing and John von Neumann. Behind tasks performed by computers predicting the weather, performing complex financial transactions, or encrypting billions of messages each day lie sophisticated mathematical algorithms. Artificial intelligence, for example, is but a happy marriage between powerful computers and abstract mathematical models that sort and analyze massive amounts of data. Before our discipline became the universal global enterprise it is today, great mathematical discoveries passed from ancient civilizations to medieval ones, and then to modern ones. One can argue that the preeminence of each civilization was, in part, due to their sophisticated understanding and use of mathematics. You mean it wasn't whiteness? I'm kidding, of course. This is particularly clear in the case of the West, which forged ahead in the 17th century with the discovery of calculus, one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs of all time, and apparently very oppressive, so I hear. The United States became the dominant force in the mathematical sciences in the wake of World War II, largely due to the disastrous genocidal policies of the Third Reich. The Nazis' obsession with purging German science of what it viewed as nefarious Jewish influence led to a massive exodus of Jewish mathematicians and scientists to America. One of them was Albert Einstein, whom Time magazine would declare Person of the Century in 1999. Science in Germany hasn't returned to its former glory to this day. Think about that, you guys. Because of racism, because of purging Jews, because of a little thing we now call critical race theory. They didn't call it that then, but that's pretty much what it was. Reducing people to these immutable characteristics that they didn't choose, just something to do with what they were born in terms of culture or ethnicity or whatever. That apparently was more important than scientific advancement, than their long-term success. Think about that. The quality of mathematics research in the United States today is the envy of the scientific world. This is a direct result of the openness and inclusivity of the profession. The openness and inclusivity of the profession. How can that be? I thought we were such an oppressive country. I thought we weren't diverse and inclusive enough. Except oddly enough, people keep coming from all over the world to this day. They come here to do this, to study math, to become mathematicians, to teach math, to explore math, to invent things, to pursue discoveries. Interesting. How could that happen if we were such a white supremacist nation? We wouldn't be so inclusive, would we? And yet, apparently, we are. Yeah, interesting. David Hilbert's Mathematics Knows No Races is the living motto of the community of American mathematicians. Indeed, academic institutions in the United States have thrived, largely because of their ability to attract talented individuals from around the world. Just said that. The availability of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics professionals highly trained in mathematics has been crucial to our success as a nation. You mean it wasn't oppressing people and exploiting them? They came here of their own free will? They did these things because they wanted to? Interesting. Can Americans maintain this unmatched excellence in the future? There are worrisome signs that suggest not. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development compares mathematical proficiency among 15-year-olds by country worldwide. According to its 2018 report, America ranked 37th, while China, America's main competitor for world leadership, came in first. This is despite the fact that the United States is the 5th highest spender per pupil among the 37 developed OECD nations. Alas, fewer and fewer young Americans are adequately prepared to embark on a career in STEM. See that? 5th highest spender, yet 37th in outcome. So next time someone tells you it's because we don't spend enough, you're going to want to call them on that, because that's not true. We spend more than enough, right? It's not about money. This massive failure of our K-12 education system trickles through the STEM pipeline. At the undergraduate level, too few American students are prepared for higher level mathematics courses. These students are then unprepared for rigorous graduate level work, of course. According to our own experiences at the universities where we teach, an overwhelming majority of American students with strong math backgrounds are either foreign-born or first-generation students who have additional support from their education-conscious families. At all levels, STEM disciplines are more and more dependent on a constant flow of foreign talent. And I bet within a generation of being exposed to our public schools, we will lose even that. But notice what it says. Education-conscious families. Not special schools, not private school, not lots of money. Education-conscious families. Can the school replace that? Can the school do that? Can focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion? Can doing things to take Asian students and white students down a peg and tell them how racist they are and not inclusive enough they are, and teachers too, is that going to help students succeed? Can you really replace the education-conscious family? Can government do that? I don't think so. Can government instead applaud, celebrate, encourage, set as a value education consciousness and excellence? Yes, it can. Yes, it can. It used to do that. Yeah, that's how we put a man on the moon. But I digress. There are many reasons for this failure, but the way that we educate and prepare teachers is particularly influential. The vast majority of K-12 math teachers are graduates of teacher preparation programs that teach very little substantive mathematics. Schools of education are filled with courses about social justice, identity politics, or at best, methods courses with minimal math content. The entire equity math program contains no math. I went and sat through one of their webinars. It was painful, you guys. First of all, there was no math. It was all about decentering whiteness in math education. It was all about reducing the emphasis on getting the right answer and making it possible for other ways of knowing to be okay in the classroom. It was a lot of word salad. It was a lot of gobbledygook. It didn't make sense. And when it came right down to it, I couldn't quite understand how Kendi's book or D'Angelo's book about white fragility had anything to do with teaching math. Math majors, on the other hand, must be certified to teach math in most public schools, which is a costly and time-consuming process. This has led to a constant stream of ill-advised and dumbed-down reforms. One of the latest fads is anti-racist mathematics. Promoted in several states, the bizarre doctrine threatens to further degrade the teaching of mathematics. Another major concern is the twisted interpretation of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Under the banner of DEI, universities are abandoning the use of standardized tests like the SAT and GRE in admissions, and cities are considering scrapping academic tracking in various gifted programs in schools, which they deem inequitable in terms of their outcome. This is despite the fact that such programs are particularly effective when properly implemented at discovering and encouraging talented children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Disadvantaged backgrounds. The new 2021 mathematics framework, currently under consideration by California's Department of Education, does away with all tracking, acceleration, gifted programs, or any instruction that involves clustering by individual differences without expressing any awareness of the impact these drastic alterations would have in preparing STEM-ready candidates. They are literally leaving these kids out in the cold. They are cutting them off from any opportunity in this field that could advance them away from being disadvantaged socioeconomically, because many of these kids are. The assumption somehow that because you're Asian or the child of Asian immigrants that you're wealthy is incorrect. The assumption that there aren't immigrants from other cultures, including Africa, who are also in these programs is also incorrect. And this really doesn't feel like it's about helping children. It feels a lot more like it's about covering for the failure of the education system itself. And it's actually quite scary because, as I said at the outset, you have to wonder, have they not stopped to think about the consequences of their actions? What will happen? What's the downside? We should never be implementing a policy, period, using taxpayer money where somebody somewhere hasn't sat there and said out loud and solicited feedback from all stakeholders, what's the downside? What are the potential unintended consequences of doing this? What might go wrong? What do we lose if we go down this path? No, I don't assume they've done that, because if they'd done that, then they would have to explain why they chose to go down a path that loses so much, that forgoes so much. I don't see the evidence supporting the path they're going down, even in terms of helping the people they aim to help. I don't see it. I don't see the research in support of it. I can't even imagine it. Like, I'm pretty creative and I'm twisting my brain to try to imagine how this is going to result in a better world, in the ability to achieve any of the other goals that progressives in particular have, like I said, for the environment, alternative fuels, etc. I'm at a loss, guys, to understand that. And then all of these infrastructure projects that they want to do, who's going to be doing them? It's not just today. We can't just say, well, we have mathematicians today. If that's your answer, I guess you expect to build bridges that are indestructible forever today and then not worry about whether anyone can maintain them in the future. The reason we have bridges that have lasted this long is that somebody way back when knew how to do math properly. We can't continue to go down a path where math doesn't matter and expect our society not to crumble right under our feet. So no, I don't believe they did that thought experiment. I really don't. It says, Readjustments in this direction are happening in other states too. These measures will not only hinder the progress of generations of our future STEM workforce, but also contribute to structural inequalities, as they are uniquely detrimental to students whose parents cannot send them to private schools or effective enrichment programs. As I said, the assumption that somehow these kids will be fine some other way is incorrect. Children stuck with this low quality education are rarely prepared for higher education and employment in STEM. And that's not even taking into account the consequences to their psychological well-being. If you are a child who needs this level of stimulation, if you are brilliant and you need more advanced learning and you're not going to get it in a school that you're compelled to attend, remember, they can't just not go. Okay, if you've got to sit through these classes that are so far beneath you, what happens to your mindset? What happens to your feelings about anything? There's a consequence to their mental health too. These are just a few examples of an unprecedented fervor for revolutionary change in the name of critical race theory, a doctrine that views the world as a fierce battleground for the narratives of various identity groups. This will only lead to a further widening of racial disparities in educational outcomes while lowering American children's rankings in education internationally. And before you say it's not a contest, again, I will have you look around at where we stand relative to China. China is not our friend. China steals from us regularly. Now we're going to have a China that's equipped to not have to steal from us. They're just going to best us at every turn. And we're also in a position where we have things like what happened to the Colonial Pipeline a week ago, or a little more than a week ago, actually. Why did it take so long? Why were we that vulnerable? Why were they not prepared for that kind of hacking incident? We need people who can be a step ahead of the next best in the world. So we don't have Russian hackers shutting down a vital pipeline. That is infrastructure. We're going to be feeling the ripple effects of that for the next couple of months, possibly all summer. Really, it's not a small thing. Ill-conceived DEI policies, often informed by CRT and the declining standards of K-12 math education, feed each other in a vicious circle, which is in time going to affect the entire mathematics profession and more broadly all STEM disciplines. The mechanism is as simple as it is hard to combat. Regarding minorities in particular, public K-12 education all too often produces students unprepared to compete, thus leading to large disparities in admissions at universities, graduate programs, and faculty positions. This disparity is then condemned as a manifestation of structural racism, resulting in administrative measures to lower the evaluation criteria. Lowering standards at all levels leads eventually to even worse outcomes and larger disparities, and so on in a downward spiral. And I would suggest to you that where we are right now is actually at the bottom of one such downward spiral that started at least 30 years ago, if not longer. And we are now going to the back. We're going back to the top of the spiral to drill down again to make it even worse. I don't even want to see where we're going to be in 30 years if we don't interrupt this process in a big hurry. A case in point is the recent report by the American Mathematical Society that accuses the entire mathematics community, with the thinnest of specific evidence, of systemic racial discrimination. It's a cover-up for their failure, you guys. A major justification put forward for such a grave accusation is the lack of sufficient representation in Black mathematicians in the profession. This lack of representation is real and very serious, but the report, while raising awareness of several ugly facts from the long ago past, makes little effort to address the real reasons for this, mainly the catastrophic failure of the K-12 mathematical education system. Like I said, it is CYA. Rather than admit that they completely failed at least 2 generations of students, with misguided policies aimed at righting the wrongs of the past. And rather than not doing that anymore, they're just going to double down and blame the outcomes that are their fault on some mysterious thing called systemic racism. And now make it worse. Similar trends affect most, if not all, academic institutions, including the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. The National Science Foundation, a federal institution meant to support fundamental research, is now diverting some of its limited funding to various DEI initiatives of questionable benefit. These feel-good measures to address the lack of representation of various groups in the profession risk sacrificing excellence while doing little to address the underlying problems. Meanwhile, other countries, especially China, are doing precisely the opposite, following the model of our past dedication to objective measures of excellence. How long before we will see a reverse exodus away from the United States? People will literally go to China or just stay in China, okay? The present crisis can still be reversed by focusing on a few concrete actions. Please pay attention to these. Take these to your next school board meeting. Demand answers. Demand answers. Allow math majors to teach without onerous accreditation procedures and insist that all math teachers take rigorous courses in math departments. Never again should it happen that somebody who is a gifted mathematician, who loves math, loves to teach math, just gets completely turned on by the whole concept of math, has to go through a certification process that costs them a lot of money and spends a lot of time that isn't very interesting and actually doesn't add any value to their ability to teach, that they're unlikely to actually do, so they can't teach in a public school. They might be able to teach in a private school, but you're not going to see them go work in a public school. So you're putting up barriers to their ability to teach, and yet they are subject matter experts. And instead, you take people who have minimal ability in math, minimal training in math, you put them through a math class in a teaching college and say, now they're going to go teach math. They're not equipped to teach math. They're not equipped to teach students at this level. Improve schools in urban areas and inner city neighborhoods by following the most promising education programs. These programs demonstrate that inner city children benefit if they are challenged by high standards and a nurturing environment. Yes, the persistence of these people in lowering standards, even in the face of abject failure, every time they fail more. There's never been success in doing that. It has never improved outcomes to lower standards, ever. In fact, the opposite is true. When the KIPP academies were first founded, the charter schools down in Louisiana, and they had high standards, a very clear honor code, the outcomes were amazing. The difference within a year was amazing. And then George Floyd died. And then they lowered standards, changed their whole motto, and they're implementing DEI. And I would be willing to bet you that within a couple of years, all of those gains will be lost. Because that's how it works. This is proven. Follow the lead of other highly successful rigorous programs such as Basis Schools and Math for America, which focus on rigorous STEM curricula, combined with 21st century teaching methods, and recruit talented teachers to help them build on their STEM knowledge and teaching methods. And again, don't require onerous certification programs. Increase rather than eliminate tailored instruction, both for accelerated and remedial math courses. Increase. They're eliminating them. They're not even keeping them the same. They're getting rid of them. Encourage dual college enrollment and online programs for advanced students. Right now, they gatekeep. In many states, if not all, you can do dual enrollment, so you can take college courses while you're in high school to get college credit and high school credit at the same time. This is optimal for students who are advanced. You don't have to offer the class in the high school. You can send them onto the community college and just accept credit. But the people at the high school not wanting to lose that butt in the seat because their dollars attached to it, and the dollars instead will go to the community college, they put up all kinds of roadblocks. They don't approve programs. They make it difficult to have the kids schedule the time to go to the community college because they need to take PE at the high school or whatever. And they make it difficult. I'm not going to say impossible. They do make it possible, but the parents have to jump through lots of hoops. And you don't see people on the public school side proactively going out into the classes and asking teachers, who are your most promising students? Let's get them into dual enrollment, because their parents aren't even aware of it. So if the parents aren't aware of it and not taking action to do it, it doesn't happen. You don't see the counselors on the school side being proactive at all. Support math Olympiads and math camps, both proven vehicles to discover and nurture math talent. Reject the soft bigotry of low expectations that Black children cannot do well in competitive mathematics programs and need dumbed down ethnocentric versions of mathematics. This is an idea that needs to be in the waste bin immediately. Uphold the objective selection process based on merit at all levels of education and research. Racial and ethnic disparities in STEM disciplines need to be confronted at the level of K-12 education. Accusations of systemic racism are not only vacuous, but divisive and harmful, especially to the very people they're supposed to help. American mathematics will only maintain its excellence if it continues its immensely successful tradition of knowing no races. Okay? And these are people who are professors at, respectively, New York University, University of California, Irvine, and Princeton. So, parents, members of my audience, potential future school board members, American taxpayers, concerned citizens who drive over bridges, fly in airplanes, and maybe need an MRI someday. What are you going to do about this? It's time to take action. You need to push back. Do not buy into this rhetoric that somehow we need diversity, equity, inclusion in math and in STEM. It is ludicrous. The fact that there is a disparity in numbers of people in representative diversity is literally the fault of the schools themselves. They have failed to help these students. They have failed to teach math. They have put roadblocks up to mathematicians teaching. They have lowered standards. They have done everything in their power to ensure this outcome, to perpetuate this issue that they somehow magically are going to solve, even though they created the problem in the first place. Stop believing them. It's not out there. The problem isn't out there in, white supremacist society. The problem is right there inside the school system. They created the problem. It's time to stop them. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please read this article. Please share this article. Please share this video. Please like this video. Please comment on this video. Thanks for watching. That's the video.